Playing games on a phone is fun, but one girl takes it too far. At school, her teacher yells at her for playing games when she should be listening. At dinner, her parents can't get her to talk because she's buried in her screen. And the second the lights go off, the phone comes back out and she plays until early in the morning. It gets to the point where one day, she's playing while walking home from school, and she runs right into a sign, scraping up her forehead. Her mom has had enough and tells her that she's wasting her life staring at her screen. She then makes the girl delete all her games. The girl reluctantly gets rid of each game, except for one, Taffy Tournament. For some reason, she can't get it to erase, and the weird thing is, she never downloaded that game in the first place. She has no idea where it came from. She decides to open it up and see what it is like. It's the most fun game ever! Each round, she has to tap matching colors of taffy before the mean old dentist can steal it. She plays and plays, getting farther and farther in the game until, late at night, she finally runs out of lives. Then, the old dentist appears on screen and asks her if she wants to buy more lives. But instead of showing how much it will cost, it says, 1 week equals 5 lives. The girl thinks that is weird, but she clicks on it and plays until the sun comes up. The next morning, her parents are in shock. The girl's forehead cut is completely healed. She shrugs and says that she must be a fast healer before heading off to school. She spends all day playing Taffy Tournament under her desk and gets halfway through the game. When she finally loses all her lives, the dentist appears, and this time it says, 1 month equals 5 lives. She clicks it and keeps playing, barely noticing that her hair somehow grew a little longer. At dinner that night, she tries to play the game, but her parents catch her and take away her phone. She cries and pleads with them, but they say no and put the phone in their bedside table. That night, the girl tosses and turns in her bed. She's got to keep playing. She's got to beat the game. She sneaks into her parents' room, grabs the phone, and rushes back to her room to play. She gets 75% of the way through the game before losing all her lives. This time it says, 1 year equals 5 lives. She clicks it without thinking and keeps playing. Then, when she's 90% of the way through, it asks for 10 years. Now the girl is a little hesitant. Something feels weird. But she's so close to winning. She clicks on it and keeps playing. But when her phone dies, she sees her reflection in the darkness of her cell phone screen. And she's all grown up. She nearly screams. This has to be a bad dream. She starts to cry, and then plugs in her phone and turns to the only thing that will give her comfort, the game. Pretty soon, she forgets about everything and just focuses on beating Taffy Tournament. It stops being fun. Now it's just something she needs to do. She makes it to the very last level and loses. The dentist appears on the screen. 100 years equals 5 lives. The girl stares at the screen. She can't click on it, but she can't stop playing. The next morning, the girl's parents are startled by an otherworldly voice screaming, I won! They rush into the girl's room and find an ancient old woman in their daughter's pajamas, holding the phone and smiling a large, toothless grin. It's after school, and Julian's alone in the science lab. He's a science whiz, and he comes here every day to work on his project, a life-size robot. Julian's been building this robot for months. It would have been finished already if it weren't for all the other responsibilities Julian has, like chores and homework. He wishes he didn't have to do any of that stuff, so he could spend more time in the lab. Better yet, he wishes he could program this robot to do it all for him. Julian looks at the clock, 3:33 p.m. 3's always been Julian's lucky number, so he pauses his work, closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and makes a wish with all his might. I wish this robot would do the stuff I don't want to do. A spark flies out of the robot, startling Julian. But when he opens his eyes, nothing's changed. Then, Julian realizes, 3:33? The bus leaves at 3:30. In a mad dash, Julian covers his robot with a tarp and goes, leaving his backpack behind by mistake. The next morning, Julian grabs his backpack from the lab. He wishes he could just stay here and keep working on his robot, but he has to get to class. When the teacher collects last night's homework, Julian freezes. He didn't do it. He didn't have his backpack after all. But when he opens it now, he finds a completed assignment. Julian hands it in, dumbfounded but relieved. Could it be? Did his wish come true? After school, Julian removes the tarp from his robot. Except it's not his robot. It's a person who looks just like him. Julian screams. The person screams. Julian stomps his feet. The person stomps his feet. It's like looking in a mirror. Julian puts up his hand, and the person mirrors him. Their hands make contact, and the person's hand is cold to the touch. Cold as in mechanical. Then, Robot Julian grabs a textbook and sheet of paper from Julian's backpack. At lightning speed, it flips to the page assigned for tonight's homework and starts writing. Julian looks up at the clock. 3:28. He has to get to the bus. Julian thanks Robot Julian for doing his homework and dashes out. Again, leaving the robot alone in the science lab. Without homework to do, Julian stayed up late, goofing off and slept through his alarm the next morning. He gets to school late and rushes to the lab to grab his backpack, and more importantly, the finished homework inside it. But it's nowhere to be found, and neither is the robot. He sneaks in through the door at the back of the classroom, hoping the teacher won't notice he's late. But when he reaches his desk, Robot Julian is already sitting there. The teacher stares at the real Julian, confused. She mumbles something to Robot Julian about not knowing he had a twin brother, and could he please ask him to go back to his own classroom. Julian tries to convince the teacher that it's him. He's the real Julian. This is just a robot. But the more he argues, the crazier he sounds. I'm Julian, says Robot Julian in a human voice. The teacher threatens to call the principal, so Julian leaves. He waits outside the school for the rest of the day. From the window, he sees Robot Julian hanging out with his friends, carrying his backpack, using his locker. At 3:25, Julian tries to get on the bus. But Robot Julian is already there, sitting in his usual window seat. With all students accounted for, the bus driver drives off. Julian runs back to the lab, just in time for the clock to strike 3:33. He closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and wishes with all his might that everything would go back to normal, and for the robot to go back in the lab where it belongs. What he doesn't know is that at exactly the same time, Robot Julian is making the very same wish. And like Julian, 3 is Robot Julian's lucky number. When Julian opens his eyes, nothing seems to have changed. But when he sees the backpack beside him, he feels drawn to it. Mindlessly, almost mechanically, he unzips the backpack and takes out the homework inside. Without another thought, Julian begins rigorously working away, almost as if he was programmed to. Bailey hates how stuck in the past her town is. There isn't even a mall. The coolest place Bailey can go shopping is the old thrift store, which never has anything she likes. One day, while browsing through the same old stuff, a gleaming glint catches Bailey's eye. In the back corner sits the most entrancing pair of leather boots Bailey's ever seen. She's pulled over to them like a magnet. Bailey admires their fringy tassels, intricate designs on their pointy toes, and the shiny spurs on their heels. Just being close to the boots makes Bailey feel different. She feels powerful, confident, like she could do anything. Bailey turns the left boot over, and her heart leaps with excitement when she sees they're her size. Even more remarkable is that someone's carved the initials BB into the sole. Those are her initials, Bailey Boone. But when she turns the right boot over, her heart sinks. The price tag glares at her. $250? She marches over to the salesperson, planning to bargain for them. But the further away she gets from the boots, the less confident she feels. By the time she gets to her, all she can do is timidly ask why the boots are so expensive. The salesperson says it's because they're really, really old and rare. Legend has it they belong to an outlaw. An outlaw? Bailey gulps. Disappointed, she turns to leave, but then she sees the gleaming glint out of the corner of her eye again. The magnetic force of the boots pulls her to the back corner of the shop, even faster than earlier. Before she even realizes what she's doing, Bailey's kicking off her old sneakers, putting on the boots, and racing out the door at full speed. The salesperson yells something about not stealing, but Bailey can barely hear it. She's running faster than she's ever run in her life. She doesn't know where she's running, but the boots seem to have a mind of their own. They take her miles out of town, up a sandy hill, and halt at a spot overrun with desert brush. Confused, Bailey looks for a reason to understand why the boots brought her here. Suddenly, the boots march her forward and kick at a gap in the brush. A door bursts open. That's when Bailey realizes it's a cabin so covered in dirt and brush that nobody would have ever found it. Inside, Bailey's amazed to find newspaper clippings and wanted signs from the Old West tacked all over the walls. Bootsy Bandit ransacks jewelry shop, reads a headline from one of the papers. Bootsy Bandit robs bank, reads another. Bootsy Bandit wanted, dead or alive, says a poster with a drawing of a crazed young woman smirking. Who is Bootsy Bandit? Then, Bailey notices a photograph of the same woman from the poster framed on the wall. Except, this photo shows the woman wearing a pair of leather boots. The very same boots Bailey is wearing right now. BB could stand for Bailey Boone, she thinks to herself, but also for Bootsy Bandit. Looking around, Bailey sees piles of jewels and bags of money, like from the newspapers. Bailey snaps out of her trance. She screams, realizing this must be the hideout of Bootsy Bandit, and the boots on Bailey's feet must be hers. She desperately tries to take them off, but it's like they're stuck to her feet. She manages to rip off the right boot and notices the expensive price sticker. Did she steal these boots? Bailey would never do something like that. Determined to get the left boot off, Bailey pulls with all of her might, finally freeing her foot. Bailey's exhausted. All of her power and confidence seems to have drained out like an empty bottle. But so has the boot's hold over her, and she's relieved. In just her socks, Bailey rushes out of Bootsy's old cabin. Just as she's headed downhill, she sees a familiar gleaming glint in the corner of her eye. The boots gleam through the open doorway, beckoning her. Like a magnet, Bailey's pulled back inside the cabin by the allure of the boots. No one's heard from Bailey Boone since, but people in her small desert town say there's a thief who lives at the top of the hill that you should avoid at all costs. She'll rob you blind, they say. It's summertime, and since Greg isn't old enough to stay by himself, his parents drop him off at his grandma's while they're at work. Greg loves his grandma, but she spends most of the time knitting, and he is completely bored at her house. She doesn't have Wi-Fi or video games. The only electronic device she does have is an old television set that has metal rods sticking out of it called antennas that you have to move around in order to get a picture. It's super annoying, and there's usually nothing good on anyway. But one day, as he's fiddling around with the antennas, Greg comes across a strange signal. It comes on with an unusual series of beeps and hums. Then, a perfectly clear picture comes up. It is some kids around Greg's age, hanging out at an arcade. Greg is happy to have found something that might interest him. Then Greg looks closer and realizes he knows those kids. Even though he's new to the area, he's seen them around town. And that's the arcade off Main Street. What kind of show was this? They're just talking and having fun. And when one of the kids mentions the time, it is the exact time that's on Greg's watch. The more Greg watches, the more he realizes that this isn't a show at all. This is actually happening. He watches the friends for the rest of the day. He listens to their stories and laughs when someone makes a joke. It's almost as if he's there. He's actually disappointed when his parents come to pick him up. When he returns to his grandma's the next day, he rushes to the old TV and finds the signal again. He spends another day watching the group of friends as they play and talk about their favorite sports teams and TV shows, which are also his favorite sports teams and TV shows. Greg starts to feel as if he's one of them. He's even started referring to them as his new friends. Greg watches day after day, until finally he convinces his parents to drop him off at the arcade. Greg finds the group of friends and joins them. They are friendly at first, but soon become weirded out by how much the stranger knows about them. Greg shows up to the arcade the next day and is surprised to find that none of his new friends are there. Greg is confused. Why would his friends suddenly change their plans? Then Greg realizes they must have gone somewhere else to avoid seeing him. Greg is hurt, but he thinks that maybe if he just got to know them a little bit better, then they would definitely want to be his friend. So he watches and watches. Every day, he becomes more and more mesmerized by the old TV. When Greg shows up at his grandma's one day, he finds that the old TV has been replaced by a brand new fancy TV. His grandma thought he would like it, since he loves to watch TV so much. But Greg is not happy. This TV won't get his favorite show. Greg demands for the old TV back. His grandma says she threw it out. It must be at the garbage dump by now. Desperate, Greg goes to the city dump to look for the old TV. He searches through piles and piles of trash. It seems impossible. Then, he hears the beeps and hum and sees the glow of the television from deep within a pile of trash. Greg climbs inside the pile of trash and finds the TV. It's already on his favorite show. He doesn't question how the TV is even working, or why it's already turned to his favorite show. He just lets himself be pulled in by the mesmerizing light, happy to be back with his friends. Greg was never heard from again, but they say if you go into the dump in the late hours of the night, you can still see the flicker of the old TV. Being the lead in the school play is a big deal, and one young actress is not handling it well. Sophie is starring as the princess. It's a big, juicy role, but Sophie's let it go to her head. She treats the other kids like dirt, especially the knight, Logan, who she laughs at every time he forgets a line. After all, what can they do? She is the star. Even the teacher directing the play looks the other way when she acts horrible. With one exception. Sophie complains that Logan is so bad that he should be fired. This time, the teacher reprimands her, telling her never to use that word. He then tells everyone the history of the school's auditorium. Over 100 years ago, the school was famous for its theater program. But during the opening night of the very play they're now doing, one talented actress decided that she was more entertaining than the rest of the cast. She started hamming it up on stage, causing a torch to be knocked over. It started a fire, and everyone in the auditorium was trapped inside. It's said that the ghost of those students still haunt the theater, and if anyone yells, "Fire!" the ghosts will torment whoever dared say the forbidden word. The other students listen, solemn and wide-eyed, but Sophie just rolls her eyes. Finally, Opening night rolls around. Before the curtains open, the director calls the cast together. He singles out and praises each person for their dedication and talent. Sophie waits in anticipation for him to gush about how amazing she is. But when he gets to her, he just smiles, then moves on to the next person. The others notice this and quietly giggle. Sophie feels her face getting red. How dare these hacks disrespect her? But just as she's about to scream at them, an idea comes to her. The actors take their places for the big opening scene, where Sophie has a dramatic speech. Just as the curtain goes up, Sophie turns to the other actors, smiles, and says in a booming voice, "Fire!" She sees their faces turn to horror. Then, the lights go out. Someone must have screwed up the lighting cues, Sophie thinks. Unprofessional. But the show must go on. Just as she's about to start her speech, she notices a flickering light from the wings. Someone comes on stage with a torch in their hand. As the person gets closer, she sees it's a girl with an old-time haircut and burn marks all over her face. The actress from the director's story. She swings the very real torch at Sophie, singeing her eyebrows. Sophie turns to her fellow actors for help, but they've disappeared. She turns to the audience, but it's filled with burnt ghosts. Sophie starts weeping, and as she does, the ghosts start applauding. She wails, begging the ghosts to go away, and they clap even louder. She throws herself on the ground, crying she's sorry she was disrespectful, and the audience howls in delight. The burnt girl stands above her and slowly lowers the torch to her hair. Sophie closes her eyes and screams. But instead of the fire, she just feels a hand. Logan, he's desperately whispering her opening line to her over and over. She sees the director and other students in the wings, shaking their heads in disgust. She sees the audience staring at her in embarrassment, and as she runs from the auditorium, mortified, she hears a charred, ghostly whisper. Some people aren't meant for the theater.